My name is Nicole, and I'm so excited to be here and to talk with everyone today. Let's make sure that I can get where I need to go. I created this deck anticipating a little bit more time, so I'm going to go ahead and just skip a little bit. Yeah, we'll start here. So, for those of you joining, or if you're sticking around, my name is Nicole. I am from Banzai, and I'm going to be talking today about the Safe to Fail classroom. This is the pedagogy. Oh, hi. I just noticed Wally in the chat. I love him. But so hi, Wally, and hi, everyone. I'm so excited to be here. And this is the pedagogy that Bonsai based all of our content on, is this idea of a classroom that is safe to fail. Um, so really quickly, just a little bit about Bonsai. We are used or have been used by over 160,000 teachers nationwide. We are completely free. And the way that we are free is because of community partners. We have just over 900 different banks and credit unions that partner with Bonsai across the US. They support specific schools, but also it doesn't matter if they support your school or not. You can access all of Bonsai's content completely free. So we strive to be accessible and, like I said, absolutely free. So a little bit about me. I am from Utah. So Utah passed its FinLit mandate a long time ago. I'm trying to remember exactly when. I think it was 2003 or maybe 2006. But in any case, I was required to take one. So I was required to take personal finance when I was in high school. And my teacher just put on Ramsey radio. And he did that every day. He just played Ramsey radio. It wasn't for schools, it wasn't for teens, it was just Ramsey radio. And you know what? Low effort, and I still walked away learning something. So everyone here on this call, I feel like is putting a heck of a lot more time and attention and effort into what they're teaching their students, and it is going to make a difference. I really feel that way. My role at Bonsai is that I lead the product, the school product specifically, and all of our curriculum. My number one goal is to just make sure that we're providing resources that are actually helpful for you and in your classroom. So just go ahead and move on. A little bit about what we're going to talk about today is I'm going to give just a brief minute to the national mandate landscape and kind of why I'm talking about the safe to fail method. And then we'll get into a little bit about what Bonsai has to offer. Something that I really appreciate and that I'm grateful for Intuit for doing today is that so many resources in personal finance are free, and so many of them work very well together. So you can use Intuit for education, you can use Bonsai, you can use a whole bunch of other resources that you might already know about and create a really robust curriculum for your students. Okay, 2004. I was close. So 2004 is when Utah passed the first standalone personal finance graduation requirement. 2008 is when the first core cohort graduated under it. I graduated in 2010. And so that's why I was able to take that class, or actually required to. Now, 27 states, depending on what counts for a personal finance course, you'll kind of see that count go up or down a little bit, but between 27, 31 states now require it. And no matter where you are, they might be looking into a mandate, you might have an elective, it might be not a requirement, but most districts require it in your state. There's all sorts of ways in which a financial literacy mandate might affect you in your school. So what happens though, and we see this all the time, I was just out in, where was I? I was in New Hampshire and we were talking about this. They passed a mandate a couple of years ago, and then that was it. And the state didn't really provide a lot of guidance on what those teachers were supposed to do. you get students coming in to your classroom with a bunch of different contexts and different experiences with money. You have to cover a whole semester potentially of personal finance, and you are maybe already teaching something else that actually is very common. So the good news, and we already talked about that, is that there are a bunch of free resources, Banzai just being one of them. So I'm kind of curious. We have one of the most rigorous meta-analysis out there, and so it's 76 randomized studies. They've done a whole bunch of research into this. After a student takes a personal finance course, what moved more? Their knowledge or their behavior? I'm seeing a lot of different answers in the chat. Okay, it seems like most folks are saying B. Okay, it's actually knowledge. So knowledge moved a lot more than behavior. And that, it's a little, I'm doing a bit of a bait and switch. Actually, it was kind of an unfair question because it's just a lot harder to measure behavior. We pass a student, they go through their class, they get an A, or maybe they don't, or whatever, they pass it, and they pass a test. Or maybe we can see that, they learned something, they know these rules now, but then how do we measure that behavior? We do know that credit improves because credit is something that is really easy to measure, right? We can see what somebody's credit score is. But saving, retirement, and actually college attendance has gone down. Um, Utah did a study of 10 years to see what behaviors were most consistent after a personal finance course. And that credit showed a big improvement, but everything else, either we couldn't measure it or it actually didn't show a conclusive behavioral change. And that makes sense, right? How do you measure when I took not retirement class, a personal finance class in 2009, no one's ever asked me how my retirement savings is going, right? Um, so it is hard to measure, but also there is a little bit of a lag. It's hard to practice. It's easy to know what the answer is on the test, but then what do you do? So, okay, so those three reasons I was talking about, measurement windows, decision availability, many those decisions haven't happened yet after a student has just graduated, but then there is possibly a gap in what we're teaching. Behavior takes practice, and practice requires the right conditions. And if we can simulate those right conditions in the classroom, they can practice the behaviors before the stakes are applied, right? And that's where we're going to kind of focus today. I'll skip that. We all know that. So a little bit about what I'm going to be talking about. We did recently get our ESSA certification. So Banzai has been evaluated. I can distribute this to anyone who would like, but basically all of the pedagogy that I'm going over today does have research backing and scholarship to support it. I will be mentioning a lot of scholarship in this presentation, and all of that will be linked at the end if you want to go and look into those studies and see what I'm talking about. So, safe to fail classroom, the timeline of it is that students struggle through something. They have to make a decision, and possibly it is the wrong decision. And then they experience a consequence of that decision so that they know that it was the wrong or right decision. And then we instruct and coach and reflect. And then we have some instruction and reiteration on those things that they've learned. And that is the Banzai method. So a little bit of evidence behind this method. There are three main studies that support this. The first one, actually, the first two are both meta-analysis. So they took a bunch of different research and compiled them into one study. A lot of the research on this first study, the failing first makes lessons stick, very just kind of clear this and that groups, right? So they'd have a group of students who were given a question with no instruction, and a group of students who were given a question after instruction. And then they tested to see how much problem solving they did and then what stuck with them. So they would test, maybe right after this problem was solved, and then they test the next week to see if they still remember the answer to that question. They would ask them reflective questions like, how do you know that this is true? Um, and all of that was vastly improved in the group of students that were not given instruction first, that were just kind of asked a question. Um, the second one was also a meta-analysis, and this has gone on actually for a very long time. And I think you probably have heard about this before, but this analysis just took a bunch of different research into simulations, games, role plays, problem word problems, and just tried to see if those stuck better in a student with a student than reading something or lectures. And then this last one is actually not an educational study. It is just about psychological safety, and it took place in a hospital. Actually, they were measuring two groups of med students and tried to see which one was doing better with their different practices. And the med group that was reportedly doing worse was actually doing better. It's just that they felt safe to come and say, like, hey, I made a mistake. I actually thought it was this, but it was that. And so that study morphed into something else where they learned the importance of psychological safety and feeling like you can say, um, the feeling like you can say that, hey, I made a mistake. Just kind of reacting to some of the comments that I'm seeing going on in the chat about is the productive failure just with English first students or also multilingual students? I think it's important for both, but there's a really important caveat to that. And this has to do with the time that you're letting a student struggle. If a student is coming in here, they don't know the language, and you're giving this problem in English and they don't know it, and they're just struggling to even figure out what you're asking them, and then they don't know what to do, like they're just going to get frustrated. So it's important to meet students where they're at, give them education in their language, first of all, and then also to come in and help. There's no need to let a student just struggle and struggle and struggle and get frustrated and give up. At some point, this productive failure starts not being productive unless we come in and help. So just gonna keep. Okay, so these are the four parts of the safe to fail method that Banzai has created. So these are built off of that scholarship, but then this is what we think are the four parts. One is authentic stakes. They are stakes that you can actually recognize. Students know what they are. Decision before instruction, we talked about that. Visible consequences, consequences that are not delayed, but that they can see right away. And then structured reflection. And I'm so sorry if I'm missing things in the chat. Feel free to call me out. Let me know. I want to make sure that that everyone is able to say what they want, or if they have questions that they're getting answered. So
It wasn't so much a question, if I may
yeah, for
interrupt
sure.
you. I just wanted to second what you were saying because I have 92% English language learners, and I've been doing this for a few years now. And I was contacted by the state, and they said that my scores were the highest in the state. And it was because I ditched the language instruction from my district, and I'm using this 100%.
Yes. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. I'm so glad that you jumped in and shared that. Thank you so much. And also, congratulations. That's amazing. Uh, it's y'all are incredible. I already know that, but it's so nice to hear it and it be reinforced. So quickly, the first part of this method that I want to go over is authentic stakes. So we have two scenarios here. And they actually are both good, right? So the first scenario, Lena saves, or Lena saves $50 a week from babysitting. She wants a phone that costs $800. How long will it take her to save up? That's very real. That's relatable. That's something that we know. Um, but what are the stakes in that? That she doesn't save that much? We're not sure. As compared to the next one, which is Maya 17, she just got a job offer, 20 hours a week at $14 an hour through senior year. Those hours currently go to varsity track, AP stats, and sleep, should she take it. Now we have competing values. Now there's some stakes here. It's not just a matter of how much money can she earn, it's what is this going to cost? So a little bit, I think we've covered this pretty well already, but this idea of like letting a student struggle a little bit first and then coming in and teaching them, that's really what's going to help this stuff stick. If we come in every day and we just like, hey, this is what we're talking about, that's helpful too. And there are learners that will respond really well to that. But we see time and time again, and the scholarship supports that struggling first helps instruction stick. Visible consequences. So if a student correctly defines checking account, they see an A on that quiz later, that's a consequence of knowing what a checking account is, and they did get to see it at some point. But compare that to students running a simulated financial institution where they pick the wrong account types. Let's say they get a customer coming in saying, I really want to earn a lot of interest. What account should I use? And they say checking account. The customer then gets angry, they lose that customer, their fictional bank fails, and the feedback is immediate and feels like that ouch right there, you know? And then finally is that structured reflection. And this is really critical to make the safe to fail classroom really something that they learn and not just an experience that was maybe fun, maybe not fun, and they move on. They have to reflect at the end. What did you think was going to happen? What surprised you? What would you do differently next time? And so I'm actually going to skip that. I'm sorry. That would be really fun, but I don't want to run out of time. So let's go kind of into how Banzai applies this. Um, every Banzai game is scenario based. So we have real budgets, real trade-offs. There's not a clear right answer. We make our games pretty hard, and because life is pretty hard. So an example I bring up all the time is there's one bonsai game where you get a paycheck, you have to budget it, and things happen. You have to make decisions, and you have an opportunity to take on another job. And I think it's as a janitor at a local restaurant or something like that. It's kind of like a lot of labor intensive work and it's a lot of hours. So the student can decide, do I want to do that? I get a lot more money. It'll be a lot easier to make my savings goal, or do I pass? If they choose to do it, there is a possibility that they actually end up injuring their back. And then they have to take time off from both of their jobs and recover. That's not something that we can predict. That is a good choice that ended up with a an outcome they wouldn't have expected. And so that risk and the chance goes into that as well. Um, I just got a question in the chat. How does the website lessons compare to the hard copy booklets that are sent to us from a local bank? So those booklets is something that Banzai sends out to a bunch of teachers everywhere. I'm so happy you have some. They are intended to be used completely separate from the website. The thinking is that you can, if you don't have access to the internet, if you want a screen-free day, if your school is cracking down on screens, you can still use those workbooks. Some of the workbooks, and it depends on which one you were given, do have those scenario-based learning in them where you're still practicing, where you have a person and a scenario and you're filling out a W-4 for them. Or in our digital citizenship one, you look at someone's social media account and you try to see what their password would be. Yes, you can absolutely request the workbook. Sorry, I'm still responding in the chat. If you make an account with Banzai, there is a tab to request workbooks at the top. If you are a sponsored school where a bank or credit union has selected your school specifically to sponsor, we will print and ship those to you for free. If you are not, we will try to find a sponsor for you. In the meantime, they're all in the teacher toolkit as PDFs in both English and Spanish, so you can download them there. Um, let's move on just so we can get a little bit into these examples because I think they're fun. So this authentic stakes question, I wanted to show off our finance summer camp game and show you how the stakes feel authentic in that game. So in this game, you are going to summer camp. And in that summer camp, the whole point of it is that you are learning how to manage your finances. And so you get camp dollars and you have to do camp jobs and you get to pick what those jobs are. And then you get paid and you have to budget the money that you earn. So it's relatable job options and wages. You have jobs that are like cobweb cleaner. You're going to get paid $10 an hour. Or you can run the snack booth for $8 an hour, but there's a possible raise that you get later in the summer. So there are trade-offs, more hours, more pay, but there's less time to do activities. The budget categories mirror actual life. So it's food, um, housing, and activities, but then also it's that fun camping stuff, crafts, others, and the big adventure, which is your savings goal. Sorry, going back to the chat, do I think we will do more languages? So right now, Banzai is available in 20 languages. And I, off the top of my head, do not know which of the ones you mentioned it's available in. I will make a note though, actually, and I'll reach out to you after to see. But all of the online materials are available in 20 languages. There's a little modal at the top that you can click and see which languages we translate to. The printed materials are in English and Spanish. Okay, so moving on to this idea of decision before instruction. One of my favorite games that shows this off is our stock market showdown. So in this game, I'm sure many of you are familiar with the stock market game. Love it. So fun. This game, in contrast, can be done in a day or in a class period instead of many weeks long. And there, there's obviously trade-offs to that. But in this game, the idea is that they play on part of a team and it's all fictional. And this team goes and does stock market competitions with other teams um, around their fictional school district and into the state. And in that game, their whole goal as a team is to make the most money after they pass a checkpoint amount. And the reason it's not just like the most ever is we wanted to make sure that students aren't taking needless risks or just trying to gain uh, big or do some day trading. In this game, actually, we simulate a long amount of time so that they can learn that time in the market is better than timing the market. But the whole idea is we just give them a bunch of information. We ask them, what stocks are you going to invest in? We're going to give you some ideas. We're going to give you this really difficult to read chart and some tips. Now, what stock are you going to buy, right? And that's how it is in real life. So students commit to buying and selling decisions before they know what's going to happen because that's how the stock market works. And we give them different terminology and vocab as they go through, and they get to see the results in real time. They make a decision, they hit next, the round goes through, and we see what happened to those stocks simulating a year or 10 years or even longer than that. This information is based on the real stock market. So it's simulated, but it is very much like what would really happen in the stock market. A game that I love for visible consequences, which is the third part of our method, is life scenarios. This is a game where they are saving for a goal, just a post high school goal. It's a $2,000 goal, and it could be what they want. If it's college, great. If not, that's fine too. But all of the consequences in this game are real world and they see them that within that context. So that was exactly what I was talking about with the if they choose to do a job or not. If their car breaks down, do they buy a new one or do they fix it? If they fix it, what if the transmission goes out again? Do they get renter's insurance? They don't really know what it is, but it sounds like maybe a good idea. If they don't get it, they'll save $15 a month, but I think we can all guess what might happen if you skip renter's insurance. And so actually, I kind of played that out a little bit. In this, they skip it. Their apartment floods later on in the game. It's not great for them or for their budget. And then finally, every game ends with some structured reflection, and every lesson plan does as well. And I'll talk about lesson plans in just a second. But every game we ask at the end, what's something you learned? What might you have done differently? We try to make these games very replayable so that they can um, go through and try again. Um, and I'm running out of time. So really quickly, we have created a whole suite of lesson plans so that you have a lesson if you need it for every day of the semester. So we have a 90-day course, 45 for middle and high, and then we're coming out with elementary blocks as well. And so those will give you a lesson plan for every day, tied in with the game so that you will know exactly how you can integrate those games into lessons. This is an example of the what 45 minutes will look like. And let me get to some of these questions. Okay, really quickly, this is important. And this goes back to what we were talking about earlier. Failing in the classroom can stop being productive if you're graded on failing, if it becomes humiliating, if you skip the reflection, if students stay stuck for a really long time, or if you ask for real numbers. It's okay to have like goals and saving goals and things like that. But if we're looking at the students' real finances, it may lead to feeling unsafe and some shame. So I only have 2 minutes to go over everything else that I wanted to talk about. But here's just some high level stuff about Banzai and what we offer. If you go to banzai.org, you can make an account for free. If you go to banzai.org/library, you can try all of our games without making an account. And that you can find like the summer camp game and things like that. Summer camp in particular was originally designed for middle school. So if you have an account, it'll be under that middle school level. But I think high schoolers could definitely play it as well. So yeah, let me just type it. I'm just gonna like grab a link and throw it in there. Um, So here is the Banzai library. This is where you can play all of our games for free. Try them out. If you want to have access to grading, the pre and post test to know if your students learned pre and post the game, then you'll make an account there. And these are some things that are coming. A lot of really fun stuff. Can't wait to tell you about it later. and and that's it. That's all of my time. I think I'm like down to the wire. But I hope that this was helpful. And like I said, it's all free. And I'd love to show you what Banzai can do. Thank you guys so much. This has been wonderful. I'm so happy I got to be here and to talk with all of you. And thank you, Intuit, for inviting me and letting me come on and talk about Banzai.